I see 3 participants. Welcome, welcome. We're real early, and I'm going to put up my my PowerPoint so you can kind of get in the mood. And I have the. I'll look at the chat box and the question and answers afterwards. I just want to make sure you all got the handout. It's almost like a thesis. You know, I shared all my notes from the PowerPoint. The main reason I wanted you to have these is I've got these great lists in the back about when is the best time to divide the different types of perennials. So it's going to be a great reference. I'm hoping that Carly was able to send it out. I was working on it really late last night, actually early this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and get the share screen up so to kind of give you so you know you're at the right spot. Here we go. Start from the beginning. Oh, not that. Backspace. There we go. Okay. And I'll kind of keep touching base. I'm real early. Oh my gosh. I'm never this early. I'm 13 minutes early. Oh no, my phone isn't right. So welcome everybody. We'll get started at 10 a.m. Thanks so much.
Jennifer, your location?
I'm actually in the conference room over at the Chalet administrative building because I'm set up for the Dividing and Transplanting Garden Plants webinar. It starts at 10. How do you like my Yeti? Look at this thing, 32 ounces. You put ice in it. I put ice in it at 6:30 in the morning, and there is still ice in it at 6 p.m. when I leave here every day. And my girlfriend who gave it to me got me this cool handle. Isn't that neat? Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool. Okay. Cool. Hi, everybody. My phone just let me know that it's 10 minutes away from start. And when my phone tells me that, that really means it's 8 minutes away. So we'll get started in 8 minutes. I keep changing this so I can see. Oh, look, I can do this. We have 5 participants. Thank you so much. There we go. I learned something about Zoom every day. This morning, we did our first Chalet College. We hadn't done a Chalet College because of social distancing since February. And we did our first one via Zoom. Oh my God. It's just, I mean, it's just, whoever even knew what Zoom was before all this. Isn't it amazing? So welcome everybody. You're early, I'm early, and that usually, it usually doesn't happen like this. So So we'll get started in about 8 minutes. Oh, it's 7 minutes now. Okay, thanks for logging on. Oh, cool. It stayed up now. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I'm early and you're early. So we'll get started at 10 o'clock with the webinar and the presentation on dividing and transplanting garden plants. This was a fun one. You're going to love this. Welcome, welcome. You're early and I'm early today, which is kind of unusual and fun. We'll get started at 10 o'clock. Oh, I see 10 people have signed on. Welcome, welcome. You're early and I'm early today. So we'll get started at 10 o'clock. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. I'm seeing people are signing on one by one, the early birds, and this is really unique because I'm not usually an early bird. I had to come in early today because we did Chalet College. It was the first time we'd done Chalet College since the the quarantining went into effect, or the social distancing went into effect. And so we did Chalet College as a Zoom today. So, oh my gosh, I'm learning so much about Zoom. Oh, it's just amazing. Don't you wish you had stock in Zoom? So, one by one, you're ticking on. You're early, and I'm early today. So I'm Jennifer Brennan. I'm the Horticulture Information Specialist here at Chalet, and we'll get started right at 10. And I'll do the presentation, and then I'm saving 15 minutes for questions and answers afterwards. Okay, and you can either use the question and answer box, or the chat box, and I'll have both of them open and keep track of both of those. Okay, so thanks so much. Welcome, everybody. We'll get started at 10. The topic today is dividing and transplanting garden plants, and I'm Jennifer Brennan. Oh my, this phone says it's 10:02, and this phone says it's 9:57. So let's just take the average, and we'll go ahead and get started. There's 15 people logged in right now, and welcome everybody to the Chalet Virtual Learning Center. And I'm broadcasting from the this is our conference room in the Chalet Administrative Office Building. That's the Chalet house over on the parking lot across from where the retail store is. So this is a really fun topic. It's dividing and transplanting garden plants. So we'll go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is I'll do the presentation, and then save. I've got 15 to 20 minutes at the end where I'll answer everybody's questions. And you notice that there's the Q&A box, and then there's also the chat box. So I'll be looking at both at the end of the session. Okay, so we'll go ahead. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Oh, that was not the right thing to do. Okay. Okay. Let's get out of that. Just when I think I know what I'm doing on Zoom. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. Now, why isn't that working? It has to be on here. Oh, there we go. It's working. All right. So now when we're talking about dividing and transplanting, that leads right into what's the best way, the very best way to get more plants, especially the ones you love. And you can divide the ones that you have. And people just almost seem horrified when you say that. And some of the points that I'm going to make just seem so contradictive to how you love your garden, but I'll walk you through and kind of hold your hand on this. And I've done quite a few of these myself, so I'm talking kind of from the voice of experience on most of these things. Okay, so when you're talking about dividing, okay, on the other hand, getting more of the plants you love is not the only reason to divide. Many times, and most times, the best time to divide is because plants need to be split, and they actually let you know when it's time to do that. Okay, the good news is the process is really simple and really easy to do. I just realized I got this thing here. Okay, it's okay. There are different techniques for different plants, and it depends on the types of roots that they have. So I'm going to walk you through all of the techniques, and I just realized, okay, I'm going to walk you through these techniques, and I think I have a pretty good understanding by the time we get finished. Okay, so now the basics to make sure that you divide your plants in the right way, at the right time. The plant gives you signs that indicate when they need to be divided. Usually the best indicators are the fact that the leaves start getting smaller and the clumps start dying out in the center. We call that the donut with the donut hole. So you see all the healthy, green parts of the plant, especially when they're just waking up in the spring, you'll notice this. You'll see all the shoots coming up like in a circle around kind of a donut hole that's dead in the center. That is the sure sign that it's time to divide and transplant, or just divide is basically the term. It also, a good reason to divide is if you're noticing that you're getting fewer and fewer flowers, and the flowers are smaller and smaller. So those are that's the plant telling you, ooh, you know, I need more space. So you have to follow timing and technique. There's timing and technique that's involved. So it's very, very important to follow that. So perennial plants are really the healthiest and most productive when they're young and they have room to spread out. And you can actually rejuvenate even the oldest plants in the garden by occasionally dividing them, and it actually is a fun project. And you know, and if you have people that have admired plants in your garden, this is a neat way to make friends. And when you divide those plants, you know, you can give the people who have admired those plants a good section, and they can have it for their own garden. Okay, so now the timing and the technique, don't wait until the plant is looking decrepit, or if it's monstrous, it's this huge, big, monstrous thing to divide it. The rule of thumb is, and this is hard, this is really hard. The rule of thumb is to divide it, you know, when it looks its best, you want to divide it at the end of that year. Yeah, right. That is so hard to do. It is so hard to do. But you know, when you get hardened, you know, that's when you do it. So you want to watch for those early signs of trouble. So when the center of the plant has smaller leaves, fewer flowers, and weaker blooming stakes in the outer edges. The photo here in this slide is an autumn joy sedum, and it's showing that. You can see it looks like it's flopping. The center is flopping open. That can happen if we've had a really wet spring on succulents like this. But usually when you look right down in the center, you'll see that there's a dead kind of a donut hole in the, you know, in the center of that plant. That's when it's time to, you know, to divide it. Or the other reason is if the plants run out of growing room. You know, it's filled out and filled out and filled out, and it's really hogging the space, and it's running into the plants that are adjacent to it. So that's another wonderful reason to divide. So now what you want to do when you're starting, and this is a great slide showing using a garden spade or a garden fork, you want to start at the drip line. So the drip line is where you look where the leaves are extending out. They're aligned perpendicular to the ground where the leaves end, and you know where they extend. That's called the drip line. And so, you know, to lift a perennial with minimal root damage, you begin digging at its root, at its drip line. And so what happens is the roots they'll generally extend, you know, that far. So when you start digging there, you're able to lift the entire plant, including most of its roots, without chopping them all up. So what you want to do is you want to dig a trench around around the clump, you know, just right at that drip line, and you want to do that, you know, cleanly. And you're going to sever a few roots, and then you'll cut at an angle. You'll cut at an angle, you know, and down and under the clump. And you want to do that from various points around the outer edge, you know, where that trench is. And then you can actually, you know, lever the plant up out of the hole, and you dig your digging utensil, whether it's a garden fork. I like to use a garden fork because you're not severing as many roots. And you get under and you just lever it, and that's when you just lean all your weight into that, and it'll actually pop the plant out of the ground. And so if you have really large, heavy plants, you might have to first dig the trench, and then you slice straight down the middle of the center of the plant, you know, kind of as if it was a pie, you know, and then cut wedges. I did that with it was a miniature. It was called Blue Cadet Hosta, that had been in its location, oh my gosh, I think it had been there for probably 10 years, maybe 12 years. And I had a tree that had to come down. And so this poor thing had been living in full sun and just getting sunburned to death. And I actually got to it this spring and dug it up, and I divided it into 8 different segments, you know, 8 pieces of pie. And oh my God, that plant, it filled out a whole area along the side of my yard that I just didn't have many plants there at all. It was kind of a forgotten bed that just had weeds in it. And oh my God, I'm just so proud of it. It looks so good. Okay, so now, yeah, okay. yeah, we talked about the pie section. All right, now there's seasonal handling differences. Okay, if you're going to do it early spring, you want to divide the plant while the new growth is still low to the ground. So you don't have to worry about, you know, the stems, because they're not stems that are up in your way. If you're dividing in summer, I like to tie the stems together before lifting the plant up out of the soil, so that you avoid damaging, you know, as many of the stems. When you start digging and the stems aren't tied securely, they get all broken, and then you finish dividing and it looks like you've just made a mess of everything. Now in the fall, and that's, you know, coming up, you know, in September, you know, and classically the best times to divide perennials are between August 15th and September 15th. So we're right in the middle. We're right in the middle. Normally it's not 90 degrees this, you know, this late in, you know, in August. So this is a freaky weird year, but I'm going to show you how to get around the hot temperatures if you want to do some division this weekend. Okay, so in fall, I usually will cut the plants back. This is especially true for things like peonies. You know, you just cut them back, and then it makes it easier to handle, easier to divide, and you cut them back before you dig up and do the division. Okay, now ideally, you know, my favorite is to divide in cooler weather, cooler temperatures, just because it's easier on me and it's easier on the plants. Perennials can be divided really any time of the year, you know, if you give them the appropriate care afterwards. But for the best return on my time, and the quickest reestablishment of the perennials, I like to divide when the soil is warmer than the air for at least part of every 24-hour period. So like right now, which is interesting, right now our soil temperatures are in the mid 70s, and so with our cool night temperatures we're having, you know, the soil is warmer than the air for, you know, at least you know, a good part of this 24-hour period. So you know, the timing is good, you know, right now. Okay, and in the springtime, that temperature match between soil and air is usually at just before the peak of the daffodil season, and then in the fall, right after the nights become really cool on a regular basis. These conditions allow the roots of the division to grow while the tops are not actively growing, and it keeps those perennials out of the sun and the wind, and so they get established much more quickly. Like I said, I like to divide in the fall rather than the spring, because the plants have more time in the fall to get their roots established before they have to start growing in high heat. And the way our growing seasons have been the last several years and the last several summers, boy, we just go from, you know, cool, wet to just blazing hot and dry. And that's been the case the last 6 years. This summer has just been gruesome, absolutely gruesome. So I love that we're going into fall now. Okay, you know, usually we say that you want to divide the spring blooming and early summer blooming plants in the fall, and you want to divide the fall blooming plants in or late spring, early summer. But you know, you can divide fall bloomers in September if it's really if it's really necessary. And what I like to do is I usually like to let them bloom, let them finish blooming, kind of go as long as, you know, as I can, and enjoy those flowers, and leave them undisturbed while they're blooming, and then divide them in the spring. So, you know, so it just depends on the look you want in your garden, if you really want to enjoy those flowers. Okay, so when you're doing this, you want to make sure you're keeping the roots cool and moist, and this is really, you know, particularly important when we're having hot days like this, if you're going to do this. But ideally, you want 50% humidity and 50% temperature, or 50 degrees temperature. They're ideal for holding the divisions until you can get them back in the ground. So if you're doing a huge project and you have to dig everything up and you can't get them planted right away, or you can't get them delivered to the people that want parts of your plants, you know, if you do it when it's those types of temperatures, they survive so much better. So you want to put them in a bucket or a box, and keep them in a cool shaded place, you know, like your garage, and then cover them with newspaper, and then keep that newspaper, you know, sprinkled with water. So it keeps everything moist. It keeps everything moist. And that prevents moisture loss from the plant tissues, especially the roots. Now, you know, if despite all your great work, those divisions do dry out while you're holding them, you know, don't worry, don't worry. You can soak those, especially you soak those roots in a bucket of water for about an hour so they get hydrated before you replant. So you know, that I've had that happen with daylilies. I'm not as careful with daylilies because you can be a little careless with those. Okay, now what's really important is when you do dig up a lot of your perennials, you're removing a lot of soil when, you know, and mass. So you want to replenish the soil that you've dug up with those root systems with organic matter. So if you remove a wheelbarrow of perennials, then you should put a wheelbarrow full of compost back in, you know, to renew, you know, before replanting that area. You want to renew that soil. My favorite is our cotton burr mulch. I love it because it's a great value. You get 2 cubic feet bags, two cubic foot volume bags, and if you're going to mulch 2 inches deep over an area, you know that you'll actually be able to cover 12 square feet. So you want to, you know, I love that. Our chalet compost is excellent, and that comes in a 1 cubic foot bag. The chalet leaf mulch is also really good too. The reason I like the cotton burr mulch the best is that it's like a hybrid cross between leaf mulch and shredded bark mulch. So it has some more, it has more texture, and it adds a little more organic matter to our heavy clay soils. So it helps aerate our soils really, really well. And it doesn't break down as quickly as just a straight leaf mulch does. So you know, you get that benefit, you know, of adding that. If you have really, really, really heavy clay soil, consider adding some of the, it's called clay soil perfector. And it's a high temperature fired calcined clay. They're 3/8 of an inch diameter pebbles that look like little lava rocks because they have all these holes in them. So they help aerate heavy clay soil. They never break down. Once you add it, it stays in that clay soil forever and ever and ever. Any organic matter will break down from, you know, 1 to 2 years. So you always have to keep adding that. That clay soil perfector, and that's from the Espoma company. It's excellent. It's absolutely excellent. And it's a 25-pound bag, and it will cover, if you spread it 1 inch deep, and then dig that into the top 8 inches of soil, it will cover an area, a square area that's 5 by 5, 25 square feet. I like to use it when I'm transplanting and dividing. And I'll put it in the bottom of the hole, and then I'll mix it 20% with the backfill. So you get this wonderful aerated soil all around the roots, and it really encourages the roots to grow out into the existing soil. So now, if you're not going to do any additions after you've dug up, you know, transfers or transplants, when you replant, the plant's not going to have, it won't have the advantage of a renewed fertile soil. And then the bed will also settle after the planting, and the plants will be at a disadvantage, and they won't have good drainage, and they won't have good air circulation. Wow, I just saw that we have 27 people. Welcome, welcome. All right, I'm right in the middle of the presentation. We'll keep going. Thanks so much. Okay, here we go. Okay, that's not supposed to do that. There we go. All right, now, once you get it divided, you want to use the vigorous selections first and to replant. And when we're talking about the vigorous sections, you don't want to use the sections that are dead in the center. I like to just discard those. But so, you know, after dividing, you want to replant pieces that are at most 20 to 25% of the original clump. So that means a quarter, you know, a quarter of the original clump. Smaller sections actually grow more vigorously when you put them back in the empty spot, and they tend to produce stronger and longer lasting blooms. It's always amazing to see how they recover. Now, if you divide a hosta, for example, into pieces with you want about 7 growing points. Those are like 7 shoots, and that's going to yield the best results. Okay, perennials multiply exponentially, and one stem is likely to triple or quadruple each year, and that's particularly true for hostas. Okay, so if you all you do is if you just take an overgrown clump and cut it in half and replant it, it will more than double that the next growing season, and you'll need to divide it again the next year. So really do yourself a favor and do the plant a favor, and cut it into at least quarters if you don't cut it to more. Like I did with that hosta, I cut it into 8 little pie wedge pieces, and oh, I'm so thrilled. Even my husband noticed. Oh, that's just so amazing. Okay, so now when a plant's in bloom, you want to take extra care. And you read, and I've read, that you shouldn't, transplant a plant when it's in bloom. But I've sometimes done that myself, and I've had good luck. What they say is that plants in bloom, what will either happen is plants in bloom will focus on the blooms and focus on making the seed pods, or and to the expense of producing good roots, or what will happen is they'll focus on roots and then abort all the flowers. And sometimes it's really disappointing. So I like to just cut the flowers off beforehand, so I'm not disappointed when they abort. But I've gotten by with this myself with Japanese anemones and asters and then also the pasque flower in April. And then also lungworts in April, when you can do that. I really haven't lost any divisions, but I also spoil my plants. I use that transplanting solution called Root and Grow, and it has a 4:10:3 nutrient ratio with that high phosphorus, and so that really spoils them. And it also has a rooting hormone in it, so it tells the plant, I want you to use all that phosphorus and make roots. So remember that is the Root and Grow. Okay, so here we go. Now, when you're looking and you do the divisions, you can see the division on the right in this photo came from the center of a plant where it looked like the empty donut hole, and you can see the roots are not healthy at all. And then the clump on the left, you can see how healthy the roots are, and it came from the outer edge, the actively growing part of the plant. So you really, and this is a astrantia, and so you can get by. If you're really stressed and you want to fill out a whole area, you can use the centers. They will produce, but you really have to baby them, and you really have to give them that tender, loving care with that transplanting solution on a regular basis. You also want to use, I'll kind of backtrack for a minute. If you're using that transplanting solution, the research shows that it takes 6 to 8 weeks for the roots to go from the division out into the surrounding soil. So you want to treat them like intensive care patients, giving them extra water during those 6 to 8 weeks, and then also use that transplanting solution over that 6 to 8 weeks every 2 weeks. So if you're going to just focus on 6 weeks, it'll be 3 times. 8 weeks, you'll do it 4 times. So it really benefits. Now, this is really, really important. You want to make sure, and this is a peony. You want to make sure that you're just keeping the healthiest pieces. And the problem with peonies is they are so susceptible to like rhizoctonia, which is a stem rot. And this photo shows how the center of that shoot actually got inoculated from the roots going up. And that's what it looks like before it grows, and then before those stems turn black. So you want to look real closely to make sure you're not spreading anything that has disease. I like to look at the plants before I dig them up. Excuse me. Before I dig them up, and if I see any of those darkened stems, I'll prune them out and kind of tag it with duct tape when I dig up the section, and then make sure I cut that out. Okay, now here we go. If you wait for a perennial to do division until a perennial is declining, and it has that dead center, or it's succumbed to diseases or insects, excuse me, because it's become crowded and weak. Make sure you're only replanting the healthiest sections and really do a good job editing out. I'm so sorry. Let me get a drink. I have my Yeti here. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, these are usually all on the outside sections of the plant. Those are going to be your healthiest areas. Watch for those discolored stems and the erosion, you know, of the crown and the roots. So make sure you're only keeping the healthiest. Okay, now when you've got, and now this is a really great. I love these photos. You want to replant divisions in a wide hole over a wide area. So you see how you spread the roots out. You know, these are the roots are spread out over the kind of and placed over a mound of soil, so that the roots are actually, you know, aiming down into the soil, because you want to honor the geotropism. Roots have this hormone that so they know you know to grow down. If you plant them so that the roots are level or aiming up, it really throws them off. They have to kind of sit there for about 6 weeks to reorient and say, no, something's wrong, and then they reorient their roots. So give them a head start, and you know and aim them down by putting a mound of soil and then resting those roots right on top of it. Okay, now again, spread out your divisions. Okay, in the next season, after you spread these out, and you can see how these are all spread out, you'll see that the top of the plant will actually be as wide as the roots that you have spread out at the time of replanting. And so you want to make sure you don't want any of those roots to overlap each other, you know, and so you don't want them to compete with the other divisions. So you can see how these are all spaced out. These actually look like they're put on 18 to 24 inch centers. Okay, here we go. All right, so you want to place the division into a hole that's at least as wide as the roots are when they are spread out. And again, don't turn a root tip up. Make sure it's going down, and because of that geotropism and the hormones that are in there. Okay, so here we go. Now you want to let the roots be your guide, because you'll see that those root types fit into 5 different basic root types. There's roots that form clumps, or they'll send offsets off to the side. There are plants that have surface roots. Monarda is a good one about like that. And that is why we sometimes don't like Monardas too well. And then there's also underground running roots. Those are black-eyed Susans have those. Then there's taproots. Taproots can be fussy. You know, Monarda, not Monarda, Jenny. Asclepias, the butterfly weed, has a taproot. That's why they're so fussy. You know, they don't like to be moved because of that taproot. And then there are the woody rooted plants. So I'm going to show you how to proceed depending on what root type your plant has. So this is the offset types, and you want to divide a plant whose roots form offsets. Those are small plants growing at the base of a larger plant, and you can see that where I have the knife, you know, right next to where an offshoot is. These are hostas that have great you know, offshoots, and you can either snap the connection in between the sections or just cut them with a knife, you know, but you want to make sure that that you have at least, you know, at least 1 to 3 eyes, and that the eyes are where the shoots start. Some clumps are so dense you really have to cut them. That the hosta I was talking about earlier, I actually got my pruning saw and cut it into the 8 pie-shaped wedges. It was amazing. It was amazing. I felt like Attila the Hun the way I was doing it. Okay, so the plants that include offsets are things like asters and coneflowers and hostas. Okay, and then coreopsis, the tick seeds. Okay, surface roots. Okay, the surface roots. Some perennials have root that run along, just on top or just below the surface. And what happens is when they'll form a new crown and new roots that form in, you know, grow into the soil wherever they make contact with soil. If they're an above ground runner, wherever they touch the soil, they'll root in and make a small plant. Or if they're below ground, they'll make a plant when their root comes to like a bare area in the soil, you know, and you can actually just cut in between where the small plants are, and just cut the root and just lift that plant and actually move it. Bee balms are notorious for that. Black-eyed Susans, creeping sedums, and then Veronicas too. Veronicas too also are like that. Okay, now taproots. Taproots are some of the most challenging. So, okay, and what you need to do with taproots, you want to divide it by running a sharp knife down the length of the root, so that a section of the taproot goes with the roots that are shooting off the side of it, and then also you want to have an eye, or an eye is a shoot for the new plant. So every piece that has at least one eye and some of the taproot and a few side roots is viable. Is viable. So you can kind of divide it up. I have another picture to kind of show you a little bit better picture. This one looks a little tangled up, but balloon flowers are like that. Butterfly weeds are like that. Cushion spurges, the euphorbias, and oriental poppies all have taproots. Okay, and this is a close-up of taproot. And so you can see how it's running down the side. So you would just kind of run down and right through the center of it and split them all off. So the roots that are running off the taproot are the ones you'll focus on, and then you'll make sure that there has a node or a vegetative eye that will form off of it. Okay. Now then there's underground running roots, and what happens? The underground running roots will actually develop suckers as they grow beyond. When they grow beyond the shade of the mother plant, isn't that cool to know? When they grow past the shade of the mother plant, then they'll send a sucker, which is a new plant that will come up. A lot of woody plants do this, and a lot of the woody shrubs that will do this. And the suckers can be cut away from the main plant, or you can dig up the main plant and cut away any piece, that has an eye or sucker already forming. And these plants include hardy geraniums, the Japanese anemones, ostrich ferns. You may see those running all through your garden and then running even out into your lawn. And then plume poppies. It's another one that can be really a problem plant. So, okay, so now, and plants with woody roots. This is the last category. And the woody perennials often form roots when the woody stem, rests on the ground, or when they get buried by a little bit of accumulating mulch, and what they'll root in, and you can make a new plant by just simply cutting between the rooted stem and the mother plant. So they're really easy to work with, and these are plants like candy tuft, Iberis, the euonymus, lavenders. This is a lavender that you're looking at in the photo. And then salvias are like that. Okay, so now here's how to do it. This is how to do it. You want to dig the plants out of the ground to divide them. So the rule of thumb is to dig 6 to 8 inches away from the base of the plant. And that's all I was just talking about, the drip line. I like to use a garden fork, and that's what you're seeing in the photo here. When you're out 4 to 6 inches away from the base of the plant, you'll get plenty of the roots. You won't cut so many roots off, as you lift the clump out of the ground. And in the photo, you can see that the phlox was dug all the way around. It was like almost a trench dug all the way around the phlox. And then the fork was stuck in and kind of shoved underneath the bottom of the plant. And then you put your weight on the handle, and it just pops it up out of the ground. And you'll see how the roots pull out of the ground. Instead of being cut, they just pull right out. So, okay, and you can, if you're not going to do this, sometimes you can lift the plant up and out, but all of the soil can be really, really heavy. So instead, an easier method is to just simply tilt the whole mass of the soil and back on the blade of the spade. So as you're popping, pushing that handle down, it pops that whole root ball up, and you can see the roots, and you can break or cut, the older plant into sections. You can do that. A lot of times the soil will fall away from the root sections, and if not, you want to just scrape or shake the excess off, and so you actually have some wiggle room that way to gently pull. And you can see how this section is being pulled away from the main section. So as you pull them, you actually get some intact roots that will be ready to go once you plant them into the new location. Okay, this is just an example of a clump that was completely dug out of the ground before it's being cut up. And this looks like a liatris, or it may be a daisy, but you can see the whole clump, and before it gets cut in half. I've done things like this where I've tried to use my spade to cut it in half, and I ended up going to get the hatchet just to hack it. Yeah. Okay, now here's some tips about dividing. Sometimes the roots are easy to break apart with your hands. You can just gently pull them apart. But for tough and strong roots like this is a hellebore, and they can get really, 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 really woody at the base. So you use, the serrated garden knives. They're great, and you can just saw right through. I can't believe that I used my really expensive silky saw. It's called a silky saw. That's the brand. My pruning saw to cut up my hostas. But man, that silky saw just went through just like that. So I had to clean it up really well afterwards though. Okay, now you want to look at the roots. Okay, so after you dig the plant out, take a look at the roots, and before you start to separate the plant, you want to make sure you know what type of roots you're working with if you don't know in advance. Now the list that you're getting in this presentation and in the handout, you'll actually be able to look to see what kind of roots it has before you get started. And so you want to make the correct cut based on the different types of roots that are there. So I'm going to show you in these illustrations. I found these illustrations that were really great. So the three ways we're focusing on: spreaders, clumpers, and plants with woody crowns. And each of them has a few quirks that you need to know about before, as you dig the plant out of the ground. And I'm going to show you spreaders. And this is a juga. A juga is a phenomenal spreader. So what you'll do is you'll find the new crowns around the parent plant and then slice down in between them to dig them up. So you have the parent plant, one new crown, and another new crown. And many ground covers like the ajuga or the buglewood, they spread by modified stems that root wherever they touch the ground. And so it's really easy to dig up the newly formed baby plants and transplant them. This is easy. This is like kindergarten. Okay, clumpers. Dividing plants with fibrous or spreading roots like this. This is a daylily. It's pretty easy, but you'll dig up the whole clump and then pull or cut the root ball apart. Or you can just dig a chunk out along the edge. I don't like doing that so much because I hate to see a gap. In the garden. But I know a lot of people that do it that way. I'm one of those kind of perfection people that I'd like to dig the whole thing up and then put the new division right in the center where it was, so it grows evenly. But that's just a weird thing about mine. So you can cut this large clump into 3 or 4 sections and replant each one. Okay, now woody crowns. Woody crowns are the ones that are the most challenging. This is, I won't say graduate school, but this is like a 400 level, plant, 400 level college course. So when you're dividing these, you need to leave at least one set of leaves attached to the main root to replant it. And so you can see and this is a heuchera or coral bells. So you can see that each of those segments could be, cut off, and then they will form new roots. But then you want to leave at least one segment attached to the main the main woody root. So you dig up the whole plant, shake off the soil, and then cut sections off the crown, and then each with a few leaves, and then replant those individually. Now you have to be really careful the ones that don't have the roots on them. Make sure you really treat them like intensive care patients. Make sure that the soil stays moist as the new roots are forming. This one, I love using the transplanting solution, the root and grow on this. You really get good success rates on all those divisions. Now, when is the best time to divide plants? And I'm looking at the time here. Oh, I'm making good progress. Okay, if possible, you want to choose a cool and cloudy day to dig most of your plants out of the ground. And spring or fall is usually much less stressful than in the hot heat of the summer. So we're coming right into the perfect time to be doing this. So now, if you have to do it in hot weather, so a lot of people, you know, they're selling their house, they want to take their plants with them, and it's 90 degrees. Oh my God, what do you do? So, you know, if it's not practical for that, then you start by watering the plant the day before, and then also water the new location where it's going to go before you do any digging. Okay, so then the next day you're going to cut the foliage back by half, and then that way then it has the smaller root system won't be stressed, have to support all these big leafy sections of the plant, especially in the heat. Okay, so next you're going to dig the hole where the new division is going to be set, where you're transplanting it to. And now you're ready to dig the plant out of the ground and divide it just as you would any other time of the year. And then once you have the division set in its new spot, fill the hole halfway with soil and soak it thoroughly. That's a term that we call mucking it in. You want to muck it in. So you put it in the hole, fill soil halfway, you know, and then water it and just let that water drain. And what that does is that makes sure the soil, the new soil, gets in all the nooks and crannies around the old root, or the root areas, so there's no air pockets. And then it's also hydrating really well. And then fill the rest of the hole up and water that in really well. And then you can also put some mulch down, and then you want to keep that area, you know, really well watered. Water like an intensive care patient every day, probably for the first 3 weeks. It says for a few days. I like to do it for the first 3 weeks. And you know, so if the plant wilts late in the evening or early morning, water it again. And then if it's in full blazing hot sun, you might want to try to add, you know, protection from the hot sun, you know, just like draping, putting some stakes up and then draping newspaper over it and moisten that newspaper. That can help if it's really hot and it's a real sunny area. Okay, here's some examples of daylilies that were all, you know, all cut up. And so a clump that is like in that tray was cut into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different segments that can be, you know, planted out in new locations in the garden. Okay, now timing is really important. I want to really emphasize that. You can, again, it can be divided either early in the spring or early fall, and some can be very, very picky though. So the optimal time to divide specific perennial is donated in these charts that I'm going to be showing you. So S is for spring, F is for early fall. And a single asterisk on the list indicates the division should take place after the plant flowers. 2 asterisks means to wear protective gloves because the sap may irritate the skin. So this is the first group. These are the plants that need to be divided by hand. And things like Gaillardia, Dicentra, bleeding hearts, bugleweed, columbines, coral bells, cranesbill, the hardy geraniums, creeping jenny. These are all, like I said, almost like kindergarten type plants, you know, because they're easy. These are the ones that are easy to divide. And, you know, the roots are very fibrous and they're just easy to tease them apart. And this is an example. You can see how, you know, they can just be broken apart, or like these where you're just teasing them apart, you know, gently with your hands, and you know, and dividing them up. These are daisies. They're very easy to divide by hand. And then you're focusing on those fibrous roots. Those are the things you'll be focusing on, and make sure you have those before you get them replanted. Now these are plants that you're going to need to cut the rhizomes and the tubers with a knife, a garden knife. And so things like arum, virginia, you know, caladiums, calla lily, cannas, corydalus, dahlias, elephant ears, irises, lady ferns, lily of the valley, rhubarb, regerzia, euphorbia, and ginger, wild ginger. Okay, and then you can see spring or fall, spring or fall, spring or fall, spring or fall. Okay, yeah, wild ginger. I love that plant, and you do that in spring. You can get by doing that in the fall too, but it actively grows better in the spring. And here it is, you know, cutting it with a knife. And then, so now I showed you this picture just a few seconds ago with the hellebore. Now, woody crowns, you are going to have to use a handsaw, to cut these apart. And so Amsonias, astilbes, acanthus, liatris, the gay feather, eupatorium, jopieweed, and baptisia, the wild blue indigo. You'll have these charts. Oh, and Solomon seal too. Oh, and peonies. Okay. Now, this is showing how to use a saw, and you just take a deep breath and you just start sawing, and you're going to be cutting a lot of roots, but you just, like I said, take a deep breath and just saw them apart, get them in the ground soon, and they'll do just fine. They'll do just fine. This was one of the great big, this is a hosta again. Okay, and then showing the hostas, and you can see how in this photo where the main divisions were actually cut with a saw, and then you have all the other, very, very thick roots around it, but these were the divisions where those sections were attached to each other. And then just another example of hostas. Now these, and the majority, I'm sorry to tell you that the majority of the perennials kind of fall in this category. And these can be divided with a spade or a pitchfork. And the pitchfork technique is kind of interesting. I like to do two pitchforks and stick them both in the center, and then you just pull them apart, and it snaps the whole root ball apart. I make it sound real easy. Sometimes you need two large people to snap that root ball apart. So these are things like agapanthus, anemones, asters, bee balms, campanulas, rudbeckias, black-eyed Susans, cardinal flowers, nepeta, daylilies, fountain grasses, and then the list goes on and on and on and on. Sedges, a Siberian iris. Oh my God! When I tried to do a Siberian iris, oh, this was probably about 10 years ago. That's when I got the hatchet out. I didn't have a good saw, and I just hacked the thing. Oh my God! And it worked. It worked. The plant survived. Okay, so here's showing how to do the spade, and just sticking it right in the center and chopping right through. That again, daylilies. And then these are perennials that are best not divided. So like the alyssums and the candy tufts, dianthus, delphiniums, euphorbias, digitalis, garden sage, pelargoniums. Pelargoniums are the annual geraniums. Okay, sandalions, lavenders, rose campion, rosemary. It's best to start with a new plant on these. So let me see the time. Ooh, I'm coming right down to the finish, and I'm finishing with happy dividing and happy transplanting. And this is the pulmonaria, and which is a pretty easy one to divide. And what I'm going to do is switch this back. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and then check the questions and answers. Okay, we've got a one question. Okay, this is from Shane. Hi, Jennifer. I know you love to use the cotton burr mulch to enhance soil. The soil in my garden is almost half sand. Would you recommend still using the cotton burr or add compost instead? That is a great question. I actually would still recommend the cotton burr because it won't break down so quickly, and you'll have organic matter longer in the soil than you would just using just regular compost. That was a great question. I'm going to move this over, so if there's any more that get entered, I'll see them. And then now I've got the chat box coming up, and the chat box. And someone said she has it. Cindy says she has the cotton burr. And it says, when putting the plant back in the hole where it was dug out, how do you amend the hole before planting the plant back in? Thanks for the compliment. Super talk. Thanks a lot. Okay, what you're going to do is, and I had this slide that said if you take a wheelbarrow of plants out, you want to put a wheelbarrow of organic matter and compost and a topsoil back in. So kind of look at the volume of the plant that was dug out, and then use that as the compost to put back into the hole and stir it in, mix it in with the existing soil, and then plant the plant. And then, okay, yeah, how do I amend the soil? Okay, and then there's one over here. Okay, can I divide hostas that I planted just last fall? Absolutely, absolutely. You can divide hostas that you just planted last fall. Absolutely, and hostas are really toughies. Hostas are some of those plants that you can divide almost any time during the year, and they're almost one of those plants where you just divide them, dig them up, throw them on the ground and step on them, and they'll root their way in. I don't recommend that, but daylilies and hostas, you can almost be that careless with them. Okay, should I use the root and grow after dividing Siberian iris? Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. And that's for Gail Collins. And then, okay, then Miriam said, would you recommend to plant under an older pine tree that has had its branches cut about 15 minutes? Sure, absolutely. Go ahead and you can underplant, but just realize, you know, there's going to be a lot of competitive roots, so you're going to have to water it more and give it extra fertilizer because the pine's going to want to take most of it. But that was a great question. And this is Sue. Thanks, Jennifer. This was an awesome class with so much helpful information. I appreciate it. Oh, what a nice compliment. Thank you so much. And this is from J.L. Minden. Will we be able to have a copy of your lecture? Great information, well presented. I wouldn't remember without a reference. I'm hoping that Carly was able to send, these outlines, or these are the notes. These are all the notes that were in the PowerPoint. I will touch base with her. If you didn't get an email, there's an email that you were sent the link to log on to the webinar. And then there was another email. Either it was included in that email and or a separate email. And if I'll check with Carly, if it didn't get sent, I'll make sure this gets sent out to all of that did the that registered. So yeah, it's always nice to have notes, isn't it? Okay, and then let me see. I'm looking at the time here. It's 10:47. Man, we're doing good, aren't we? And I'll leave it. I'll do like last call, like at the bar, last call to get your final drink. You can, last call to do your, oh, thank you. Mimi said that the handout was sent. So open it up and then print it up so you have it. Thanks, Mimi, for letting me know that. That's great. And then Jennifer, this is Shane again. Always great to see you, and thank you so much for all the valuable knowledge. Woo! Thank you. I'm honored. I'm absolutely honored. It's always so much fun to do this, and I am so proud of our marketing staff, and that we've figured out how to do this virtually, because I feel like we're reaching as many people and possibly more people than we did for people that would come to the Learning Center. So I miss seeing you all. That's the one thing I miss. I miss seeing you all, and but a lot of you are coming to the Plant Information Center, and that's where our nursery office used to be. We shut the nursery office down, and so you come to the back side. Those are the windows, the information windows, and we answer we answer the questions there. We also have a great service. If you want to social distance, we have our customer call center. And so whenever you call Chalet, that goes straight to our customer call center, and they will direct you to the right person that you need to speak with. You can also do an email directly to the customer call center, and it's hello. It's hello@chaleynursery.com. My email address is Jennifer B, and that's JENNIFERB, my last name's Brennan, @chaleynursery.com. And then we actually have phone numbers. We have direct phone numbers now. We got our phones hooked up at the Plant Information Center, and that direct extension is 634. So you dial 847-256, and then 0561, and then dial 634, and it goes directly to that extension in there. If we're busy with customers, it will go to a voicemail, but we always get it. If you're asking to talk to any of us, we'll have it for you. So, okay, so we had 8 questions, and then I think we had 7 chats. So you all have been wonderful. Thank you so much. We still have 21 people here, and oh, you all, we're having some really fun sales coming up for this weekend. Our perennials are 20% off. So you can go online to see which ones are included, and then buy them when you come here in person. All of our Japanese maples are a third off, and 30% off, 30% off. And so it starts this weekend. It's a flash sale, and it's going out in an e-blast, an email that's going out to our rewards members. But if you come in person and want to buy a Japanese maple today, we'll honor that. We'll honor that. So we're doing all kinds of neat promotion things to make it, really, really, worth your while to come in and shop, here at Chalet. So okay, and this is another great thank you from Miriam. Saying thank you so much for a great presentation. Thank you. Very timely and so useful. I found these presentations very informative and a great service to us all. Thank you, Miriam. That is so wonderful. I really appreciate, all your appreciation. So let me see. Okay, we do record these, and usually it's a day later. Our marketing team is posting them to the Chalet YouTube channel. So you can always go to YouTube and search for Chalet, and you can watch this because it's been recorded. So it's almost as good as being there, watching it live. So so okay, and thank you all. You have all been so wonderful. I think I'm gonna say thank you, and we'll sign off, and I'll see you at the next round. Oh, next week, Bill Leuenberger. He was the gentleman that founded our soil and turf department, and he's retired, but he's coming back to do the soil and turf, the fall lawn care lecture next week. I'll be helping him. I'll probably be in the background because I do the PowerPoint, for him. But he'll be the one, doing the presentation. We can't fit two of us, and be socially distanced in the same screen using the same camera. So so he'll be the one doing the presentation, but I'll probably be in the back, in the corner of the room over there, so we can laugh and joke, and I can help him with, with any of the technological things. He's not a high tech guy. Well, wait a minute. He used to always, he and his son always had a business where they played music at, and he had the best supply of music, and he would play at weddings and parties and things like that. So you know what? I think his technological, knowledge is pretty good. We'll test him next week. Okay, we'll test him next week. So okay, you all. Let me see. It is 10:53 right now. Oh no, 10:59 on the official computer time. Okay, what day will the fall lawn present be scheduled? That's next Friday. Next Friday at 10 a.m. So just like our usual ones. So yeah, and that'll be with Bill Leuenberger. Thanks for asking that question just as I was getting ready to sign off. And it's 11 o'clock now. So I'm going to say thank you, and enjoy this hot weekend. And I hope we have a beautiful fall, cool, brisk weather. I'm looking forward to that soon. So and I'll look forward to seeing you at Chalet. All right, thanks. Bye now.